Hi Queens, Sam here. I hope that you're doing amazing. When it comes to building wealth, I've realized that there are certain things that most of the time people don't think of. They forget about it, they don't realize that it's actually also important for them to actually think of it when it comes to building wealth because we are so focused on budgeting, on tracking expenses, on investing, but not so much on those few things that I do believe are also important when we talk about building wealth. So I'm going to be giving you a highlight of those things in this video, and I'm hoping in the future to do video that's going to be more detailed about each of those things, and even maybe have people who are going to be coming on the channel to interview them to actually have a deep dive into each of those aspects because I do believe that they are important. So, what are those things that I'm actually talking about? And there may be more, and definitely, if there are more from your perspective that you think of, don't hesitate to drop a line in the comment below so we can actually all know about it and all learn about it as well. The first thing is insurance. So, for some reason, when comes to we're talking about building wealth, people will tend to forget about personal insurance. So I'm not talking about your home insurance or your car insurance. Those are mandatory, right? So you don't really question that. You know you need to get a house insurance, especially if you have a mortgage on the house. People will go and get that, no question. Same thing for your car. You buy a car, you better have insurance because if something happens and you don't have insurance, that can be very detrimental to you. But I'm talking about personal insurance like life insurance, critical insurance, and disability insurance. I think for me, the most two that are really important are life insurance and critical insurance. A lot of people will decide not to have it, sometimes will decide to actually have an amount that's not really enough if really something was to happen to really cover their needs. And sometimes people will decide to rely on their employer insurance, not also keeping in mind that you may be working for that particular employer today, but tomorrow you might be working for another employer. So specifically for me, I think insurance is important from my perspective, and I think it's because I'm a single parent and everything is based on my income. So if something was to happen in terms of me not being able to work, there are a lot of things that actually I need to make sure will still continue to be paid for. So there comes the critical insurance, or if something was to happen and me really not being on this earth anymore, same thing. I would like for my family not to find themselves in hot waters just because I'm not here. There comes the life insurance. So specifically in the Black community, for some reason, when we start talking about life insurance, people will tend to get a bit edgy on that, forgetting that, as we say, the two most certain things in this life are you paying taxes and also death. So those are the two things that we are 100% sure each and every person on this earth will go through. You will have to pay taxes at one point. If you're living in a country where you're working and you contribute to the society, you have to pay taxes. And same thing, we are not here, nobody's here to live until 200 years, 300 years. Maybe with the science, in the future, it's something that is possible. But as of now, certainly nobody is getting, like living forever or living up to 150 years. So death is something that is sure, and you need to be prepared for that. You need to make sure that you put things in place for your family not to find themselves in a bad position because you're not there. So first thing, insurance. The second thing is having a will and a POA in place. So POA will count for power of attorney. So the will is, I guess for me, the best gift you can give to your family upon death, because you're clearly telling them this is how I would like my assets, my liabilities to be taken care of. So many times we see families being, like going into disagreement, disputes over the passing of a loved one and how to manage the estate of that particular person because there was no will in place. When you put the will in place, you're telling them exactly how you want things to be dealt with. Nobody is going to be questioning that. It's just going to be much easier to actually action it instead of letting your family decide how your assets and liability will have to be managed. Not everybody will see things the same way. Not everybody will have the same motives, and that could result in things being done in a way that essentially that will not be your preferred way. So you have the opportunity through your will and through your power of attorney to tell your family how you would like things to be dealt with, your financial assets, and for the POA when it's like for the physical one, in case you become incapacitated, you cannot make decisions for yourself, how you would like things to be dealt with. So the will and the POAs are very important. Like sometimes people would think it's something that is complicated. It is not complicated. You may be able to like create one by yourself. There's a lot of online sites where you can do a will by yourself, or you can actually hire an estate lawyer to help you put a will in place, and make sure to revisit that will often in case your situation does change. So there you have it. That's the second thing that I feel like people tend to forget when it comes to building wealth. The third thing is a financial plan. So I've talked about budgeting, I've talked about tracking expenses, I've talked about having an investment strategy in place. A financial plan is for your long-term plans, financial goals. So if you have a goal in 5 to 10 years to retire, it'll be good to have a financial plan in place, because when we talk about budgeting and tracking expense, those are for short term. Those are really daily or maybe monthly at most. But when we talk about something you want to realize in 5 to 10 years, or you becoming financially free in 10, 15, 20 years, that is long term, and you need to have a financial plan in place as a guide, as a map, to help you making sure that you stay the course, and in case things change, you can adjust it. You may be able to put one in place by yourself if you're savvy enough, because there is a lot of different parameters to be taken in consideration. But most of people will work with the only advisor to actually put the financial plan in place. And so that's really something that I recommend when it comes to essentially building wealth, because you want to be able to have a good idea on how things that you're doing now, how it's going to be contributing to you realizing your financial goal in the long term, and reaching financial freedom, building wealth, and all of those things. So having a financial plan in place, very important, especially if you have dependent that you want to be contributing to for their education. So many different factors that we all have. The financial plan will help you put everything together and essentially give you a bit of a guidance on how to manage your thing right now, to making sure that they do contribute to your long-term financial goal. So that's that. The fourth thing when it comes to building wealth is really surrounding yourself with like-minded people, with a community, people who are also looking at doing the same like you. I'm going to be very blunt. Like, building wealth is hard. It's difficult because at the end of the day, you might be actually your way of thinking will be very different from most people. Where people are like most people are wired to spend and consume. You are more wired to save your money and essentially invest for the long term. Not to say you're depriving yourself for anything, but essentially, you might find yourself in circles where everybody's talking about, buying the latest, I don't know, like brand shoes, or like, going on a cruise, things that definitely maybe it's not that appealing to you because you want another mindset. Again, it's not because you're building wealth that you can't go on a cruise or buy like a brand shoe, but that might not be the only thing that you want to do with your money. And being in circles where people are always talking about spending money and buying the like the biggest car, or like buying the biggest house, is not really something that is entitled to. So find your tribe, Find your community, find your people who are also in line with you when it comes to building wealth, that you can exchange with, that you can learn from, and you can feel supported. And I talk about community a lot in my videos because when we want to achieve something, it is hard because sometimes you feel like you're alone on your boat. And you know it's very difficult. But when you find the people that are also the same, just like you, in terms of things that they want to do, it's much easier. You can reach out to them, you can feel supported, you can ask them questions, and it really changes the whole aspect, and it makes things a bit lighter for you. So when it comes to building well, we tend to forget about it because we're like, you know, in our head, and we just go like in a silo mode. But this is where you actually want to jump on maybe some social media group, some networking group in your area, and really find your tribe. And then the last thing that I think people tend to forget when it comes to building wealth is sustainable generational wealth. And that to me is probably the most important, I have to say. A lot of studies have showed that, you know, the first generation will build wealth for the second and third to literally dilapidate that money. Usually, that money by the third generation is gone. And the main reason is because there hasn't been anything put in place for the next generation to sustain the wealth that the first generation has built. And to me, that's mostly through education and really making sure that the next generation is aware of what the first generation is doing, involving them as soon as possible, making them part of it. And sometimes people will think, oh no, my son or my daughter is just too young to understand what's going on. But that's not true. That's not true. There's always a way, even if they're 5 years old, 6 years old, to start really, uh, you know, like sharing with them different things about money, how to manage money, how to make money, how to make sure to invest for the future. Kids are like, you know, like they're brighter than what we think, and they understand much faster than what we think. So leverage that. And when you really start involving your kids at a young age, it becomes really natural for them when they're like teenagers, young adults. They also become great steward of their money, and the wealth that you're building, when you pass it on to them, it's much easier for them to actually make it even grow much bigger, and you know, pass it on to the next generation who's going to continue doing the same. So building sustainable generational wealth is also something that you don't want to forget. You don't want to just be focusing on building wealth for yourself, but also you want to make sure that the next generations are going to be continuing the good work that you're actually doing, right? So there you have it. Those are 5 aspects when I talk to people, and then, you know, we kind of like talking about building wealth, what exactly they want to focus on. I feel like those 5, especially those 5 aspect that people either don't think of, or they just don't realize how powerful there are in terms of tools in their toolbox when it comes to building wealth. So keep that in mind. Do let me know in the comments below if there are any other aspects that you feel like people are forgetting when it comes to building wealth. As mentioned, I'll be doing a further video where I will go in detail on each of those aspects, and hopefully even have someone come on the platform to talk more about it, like, you know, maybe an estate lawyer who can talk about wills and power of attorney, and maybe find an insurance advisor who can come to talk about critical illness and life insurance. So all of those things that can really help you make better decision, and you know, adding those different aspects in your toolbox for you to build you know, sustainable wealth for the long term. So if you did enjoy this video, if you did get any value from it, don't forget to like, to subscribe to the channel. Make sure to hit the notification bell so then you're also advised each time that I'm putting a new video out there. Do share with anyone that you think can learn and benefit from this. And until next time, keep on building wealth. However, I'm hoping to do a more, I guess, a video that's going to be more